Okay, so the file. So first of all, we've got a project due tonight. So a couple reminders on projects. First of all, remember that projects are supposed to be individual endeavors. Are you allowed to talk to other students about projects? Yes, you are. But what are you not allowed to do? Where do we draw the line on collaboration for projects? Yeah, code. So you're not looking at anyone else's code. You're not talking about specifics about code. You can talk about algorithm, so hey, how am I going to go about doing this? You might say, well, gosh, how am I going to go about, making a formula? We never did a formula like that. And would it be okay for you to say something like, well, just record yourself making a formula? Yeah, that would be just fine because you're not talking about the code, you're talking about process, and that's all right. Okay. And that's due what time tonight? Like sometime before tomorrow. And by the way, what happens if you don't get it done before tomorrow? Is it the end of the world? Like you got one more day and you're working out of 90%. So it's gonna decay 10% a day till ultimately, like after a week, it gets down to 30% of its original value, at which point it will stay for the rest of the semester. So, like kind of later in the semester, if you've missed a project, you can always pick up at least 30% of the points by doing it anytime. All right. Any other administrative questions? Yes.
When France got their revolution, any outstanding debts that are did those just go away?
So here's the question. So in the French Revolution, did they actually pay the debts? I guess that's an administrative question in some sense, not the way I meant when I asked the question, but so I'm not a scholar of the French Revolution or really of the American Revolution. I know a little bit about it. And I think that what you're suggesting is that and one of the amazing things is that America paid its wartime debts. In fact, when they made the new Constitution, it was kind of step one was the federal government now is taking on all of the state debt that pertains to the war, and we're going to pay it off, and we did. But yeah, France went through.
That's what I was curious about. You mentioned that France obviously gave the U.S. a ton of help, and so I was wondering if the U.S. ended up paying it back despite the revolution.
Oh, yeah, we paid them back. It's an interesting question because we borrowed the money from King Louis XIV, King Louis XVI. Yeah, how soon did we pay them back? I don't know. Like in time for Louis to get the money, or was it later and we're now giving it to the ones that executed him? I don't know the details. But after the French Revolution, kind of opposite happened. The French government would go through several iterations. Well, that didn't work out. We're going to start again with a new government. That didn't work out. We're going to start again with a new government. And yeah, I don't think they honored the previous government's debts kind of each time they did that. So I don't know all the details. All right. Oh, by the way, so some of you noticed this weekend. It was the first time it happened. This video has not been uploaded. You should expect it by that time. Now, if it gets past today at 5:45, then this automatically changes to a button that says Professor Allen forgot to do it. Send him a text message. And either one of you sent me several text messages over the weekend, or several of you sent me one text message over the weekend because I didn't get it posted. Unfortunately, I was out of town and off the wire over the weekend. I was actually doing a Constitution Day event up in Bountiful, and I was all in 18th century attire and no cell phones and so forth. And it kind of breaks the mood when you're there doing something 18th century and your phone rings in your pocket. So I didn't get that posted until this morning. So I apologize for those of you who were hoping to have it sooner, but that's there now, and hopefully there won't be that kind of delay if that button shows up and you send it to me. It's usually oh yeah, let me get right on that. So okay. But we're now beginning with this file. So let's go ahead and get that file download, get it unlocked or unblocked, and let's go ahead and open it up. And kind of while you're getting that up, I'll kind of set the background for what we're doing today. So the topic for today is now writing from scratch. So we've talked about recording macros and then editing what we've recorded. We looked at some kind of specific things, loops, kind of in their own individual space and looking at like built-in objects and collections. But now it's just the process of saying there's not much to record here, but we're going to, just kind of start and begin kind of from a blank slate. Now, it turns out that in addition to my responsibilities for teaching, I am also the academic scheduler for BYU Marriott, which means that I'm ultimately the one who has to figure out how to get all the classes taught in different rooms across the building and sometimes across campus. Not for the whole university, just for the business school. And so I've worked, quite a bit with scheduling data, and that's actually where this data came from. So I think this is, data that I pulled out in 2017. Were any of you, and I think this is all from the accounting department, isn't it? Yes, all the accounting department. Any accounting students here that were actually students in 2017? So no, so these were none of the classes that you actually took, but this is just, what was scheduled at that time, who's teaching it and so forth. Now, when we look at this kind of data, it tells us the start time and the end time, and that's wonderful, but it's really difficult to look at this and be able to tell when there's conflicts, when like two different classes are overlapping, and we've got to get those into different rooms and to make sure that they've, like when they do overlap, we've got to look at it and make sure that, it's not some kind of sequence of classes where you've got all the students have to take this class, they got to take this class as well, but they can't because they conflict with each other and so forth. And so what we're going to do today is just kind of look at the process of building a solution that's going to take this time here. And that's really funny. 12:30 p.m. makes sense. I'm not sure that 13:45 p.m. makes sense. That probably could get rid of the P on that, would still be a time. That's all right. But we're gonna want to schedule this kind of over here, just highlight the cells that would correspond to that. So what would that be for this one? 12:30 to 1:45. So it would start here and it would go like right up to there. So what I really want to do is I want to have code that will look at this data and, whoops, I just changed the font color there, and just kind of do something to highlight that, to be able to say that is when that one goes. What's this next one? 8 to 9:15. So that one would be here. And so we want, we could go do that by hand, but of course that's error prone. It'll take a long time. And especially, we've got hundreds of classes. Nobody wants to do that, except the VBA interpreter. The VBA interpreter would be thrilled to do that if we would just tell it how to do it. And so that's the task for today. So any questions on what we're going to try to accomplish today? All right, let's go ahead and then get to it. So open up the VBA code editor. Wow, I've really gotten us a good head start here. I've given us a sub procedure with a name. That's it. That's it. So one module. So let's see, make schedule. And kind of one of the first things that I want to do when I'm thinking about, gosh, how am I going to write a program to do this? I want to ask myself, is there kind of any natural division in the process? This is a lot of work to do here. Is there anything that's like, can I cut this up into smaller pieces and maybe have one part that happens over and over again? If I'm looking at this, what would be kind of a natural way to divide the work here? It's going to be kind of similar to the division that we made for the Fallen Angel project that's due tonight. So in other words, if I was going to make a couple of different sub procedures, one would do something, one would do something else. Yeah.
So like one procedure that highlights cells, and then another procedure that highlights a range.
Okay, so maybe one procedure that does the highlighting for here, right? So in fact, yeah, if I was to say, listen, once I've figured out how to make one of these work, then I don't have to think, too much more about, if I've thought about kind of making one of these work in a way that's going to be general, then I could have a sub procedure that highlights one, and then I could have another sub procedure that just kind of goes through and does all the rest. Like it calls the other sub procedures. Okay, move down to the next row and do it again. Move down to the next row and then do it again. So make schedule more sounds like one that's doing everything. So why don't we make another sub procedure here? Maybe just call schedule one class. SCHEDULE, one class. All right, and so I'm just going to call schedule one class from make schedule. Now, I think what I want to do is I want to tell it like which row we're scheduling. So in this case, let's say we want to schedule row number 8. And so I'm going to tell it, hey, run the subprocedure called schedule one class. I'm going to put the subprocedure, just on a line by itself. That's what that does. Now, by giving it a value here, I'm saying I want to schedule whatever class is on row number 8. I need to be able to make a way to receive that. And that's going to be by declaring a variable inside these parentheses. So here, I'm just going to say dim row as a long integer. Now, the trick is that that's how I make a variable, dim row as long. But the only thing I'm allowed to do inside these parentheses, the only thing I can do inside these parentheses is declare variables. And I can do multiple variables here, but that's all. And as a result, we don't need the keyword dim in here because that's the only thing that's legal here. And so we're going to get rid of dim, and it's just going to be row as long. But I am declaring a variable. It's just kind of doing it in a different place than we normally do it. And we don't need the keyword dim because that's the only thing you can do inside those parentheses. Now, this is a special variable called a parameter, and it's going to get its value when the procedure is called. So I'm calling the procedure, and I'm giving a value that will automatically be assigned here into the row variable. So if I come down here and say debug.print row, what's it going to print in the immediate window when I run make schedule? Yeah, it's going to print 8 because I'm sending this value down into this variable when I call this procedure. And so that variable there is going to have whatever value was sent down to it. Okay, so just on this idea of passing a value to a parameter, and that's what we call a variable when we declare it inside the parentheses here. It's called a parameter for the procedure. Just show me on a scale of 0 to 5 how comfortable you are with what's on the screen at the moment. 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 4, 5, 5, 4. Okay, good. All right. One of the feedbacks I've gotten over the years in this class is, Professor Allen, you like lecture the whole time, and we just try to follow along. What we would give for an in-class exercise. Please, anything. Okay, so here it is, in-class exercise. Maybe the only one of this semester. Now we'll have a couple more. But what I want you to do is make a loop. We talked about loops last time, but make a loop here that will print off so we're already printing the row, but print off all the row numbers that have classes that we need to schedule. So why don't we take 4 minutes? And so ultimately that should print 2, which would be the first one, down to 55. But we want to make that loop so that if someone added a few more rows here, it would still print off all of the rooms that needed to be, the rows that had data to be scheduled without having to change the code. All right, so 4 minutes. On your mark, get set, go. I got a browser here somewhere. There we go. If you have a question, raise your hand, and I'll be glad to come and take a look. I hear less typing. It either means you did it or you gave up. So how many of you are saying, hey, I either got that to work or with a little more time, I'm on the way and I think I'm headed in the right direction. How many are going, man, is the add drop deadline already passed? Okay. So let's just take a look. So we talked about 3 kinds of loops last time we were together. We talked about the do loop, we talked about the for loop, we talked about the for each loop. Which of these do you think is kind of best suited for this problem? The do loop would work really well, but the truth is, anytime I'm saying, which loop is going to work, you could make any of those 3 loops work, for any of, for any time you would use one. You could use the other, just not quite as naturally fitted to it. But I think you're right. I think the do loop. So let's go ahead and make ourselves up here a control variable, just a variable we'll use to keep track of where we are. So let me dim R as a long integer. And we're always going to be starting on row number 2. So I think it's a pretty good assumption to say row number 1 is our header, row number 2 is our data. So let's just set R equal to 2 as the initial value. And then we'll have a do loop here. Do and loop. Now I'm going to do a couple things inside of loop number 1. I'm going to put do events. Remember, do events just says, hey, once inside this loop, just pause for the briefest of milliseconds to check to see if I'm trying to get your attention so I can interrupt you in case this loop gets out of control. And I'm going to increment R in here. R is 1 larger than it used to be. So we're going to start R off at 2. We're going to down here and tell it to go schedule 1 class. It'll just print 2 the first time through if I send R down instead of 8. And then it'll go 3, 4, 5, and it's going to keep going unless I give it some way out. I'll put the control up here at the top. Do until cells row number R, column number 1 dot value is equal to a 0 length string. Why put the until clause at the top instead of at the bottom? Or does it matter? If I know there's going to be at least 1 row of data, it doesn't matter. It will function exactly the same either way. But if there's any question that we might be on a page that, somehow we've got to this page and there's nothing to schedule, then, if that data is all gone, then there's, kind of nothing to print here at all. Then we won't even kind of go into this at all if there's nothing to print. So I prefer to put it at the top unless there's a good reason to put it at the bottom. So, all right, so that should print the numbers 2 through 55. Let's give it a try. It's always a good idea to save. Anytime especially when you're beginning with loops, just save just before you run it. That way, in case the loop gets out of control, you've got your code there. We're going 2 through 55, so that looks okay. Okay. Question.
So on the line where you pass the parameter R, yes, your variable is not in parentheses there. When I tried to run mine without parentheses, it threw an error at me, and then I had to close it in parentheses, and then it ran. I don't know.
You put parentheses around it like this?
Yes. I tried without it first because I didn't think you needed to, and then it freaked out at me and wouldn't let me do it until I put parentheses around it.
If I was going to guess at the error it gave you, it was a type mismatch. Do you remember? It's like a soothsayer. I'm going to guess at what his code said.
Yeah.
Type mismatch. So did you dim R as long or as integer?
It's true.
And this is as long? Yeah. Okay, so let me explain that. First of all, whenever we're calling a subprocedure, subprocedures don't send a value back. Function procedures do. They go do something and send a value back. We're going to talk more specifically about this kind of as we come. But we never need parentheses around the arguments here. Now, let me tell you what's happened there. This is a little bit strange. So if I make this into an integer, It's a reasonable thing to do. Then when I run this, I get this type mismatch. That means I'm like mixing variable types. So it's expecting a long and I'm sending it an integer. Now, you might think that's not such a big deal. I could figure that out, but something unusual, something kind of unexpected is happening here. And here's what happens. So when we declare a variable, remember a variable it's a location in memory with a nickname. It's like a location in memory with a name. And so when I say declare R, it says, great, we're going to allocate, in this case, 2 bytes of memory. And we're going to put the value 2 into it, and that's great. Now, when this one gets called, it says, oh, you're going to be passing a value in here. It's long, so we're allocating 4 bytes of memory. And if I'm just passing a value down, like 55 or something, then it says, great, allocate 4 bytes of memory for this, and then put that value into that location in memory. But on the case, when I'm passing it a variable, not a value, not a literal value, but a variable, it says, I don't want to allocate memory again. I've already allocated memory. I've allocated memory for R. There's a location in memory that's got the value we need in it. And it happens to have the nickname R. And what happens when I pass a variable to a parameter? It says, well, you've already got the value there. Instead of allocating more memory and copying it over, it says, just make another nickname and point it at the same location. A variable is location in memory with a name. And so in this case, we're actually trying to say, listen, we've got one location in memory that has 2 names, R up here and row down here. And so when I'm passing a variable to a parameter here, the data types have to match. They've got to be exactly the same. Now, the reason that putting parentheses around that, it's like this. It's saying R plus 0 times 1. You've turned that bare variable into a mathematical expression that it has to figure out the answer to and then send that value down. That's not just passing a variable down. You're passing the results of a mathematical expression. Now, this looks like a mathematical expression, but this also is a mathematical expression. Just the fact of putting the parentheses in there says not just a variable, it's like something I had to figure out the answer to. And so that's why it works. It figures out, oh, that's 2. And because it's not just sitting in a variable, it says, oh, I've got to allocate memory for this to be able to hold it, and that's why it can pass it down. So that's the reason that it worked. But yeah, we want the data types to match. So this will be long. Ooh. Yeah, I do want to start again. That explanation that I just gave, show me where you were with that 0 to 5. People are voting 5 really quickly. I don't think you're there. Okay, I'm seeing a few that are not quite there through 2s and 3s. And that's, I would kind of expect you to be 2 or 3 at this, because if you're like brand new at programming, 2 or 3 is about how you should feel about that. And we're going to get more experience throughout the semester. But if you're feeling, didn't really understand that, it's probably okay at this point. Okay. Other questions here? Okay, well here, I'm going to show you kind of another trick. And that is kind of for debugging. I'm going to make a sub procedure here. Oh, by the way, as soon as I've made this have a parameter here, I can no longer just run this directly, right? So if my insertion point's down here and I say I want to run this, I hit play and it's going to say, well, what do you want to play? I mean, you're down here on schedule 1 class, but you obviously don't want to run that one. Why not? Why isn't it letting me run this one? Because it needs to have a value for this parameter. And so here's what I'm going to do. Like while I'm in development, this is where I'm going to be doing most of my, the top one is done now. I'm passing the row number. Now I just got to make this actually do, schedule a particular row. I'm going to make another sub procedure here, and I'm going to call it the Acme sub runner. The name isn't that important, except I would like it to be alphabetically low. because I'm just going to, and this is just for debugging purposes, I'm going to send down like, whatever row I'm interested in. Maybe we'll start with row 3. Row 3, good. I don't want to start at 8 o'clock. Row 3 is pretty good, and we're going to start at 11 a.m. So now if I'm down here working, kind of getting this procedure all set up, and I press F5 to run, it's going to say, oh, you can't run that one. I would really like the one that's doing my debugging here to be the first one on the list, because that's going to be highlighted by default. So I can just press enter to run it without having to get my mouse and go click on it, whatever. So the reason I don't want to do my debugging with this one is that this one's always starting at the first one. And, I'd like to kind of easily change this to say, well, what does this, how does this work if I work on the 5th one, the 12th line or whatever? And so kind of having a sub procedure that's just built here that alphabetically is the lowest procedure that I've got, that's just nice for being able to do the development down here. All right, questions? Well, let's get down to work and figure out what we're going to do. So what do we have to know? I'm going to be working here on row number 3 to start with. So kind of help me think about this problem. It probably isn't a bad idea for me to kind of draw in here what I've got to accomplish. So 11 to 12:15. So that's going to be that. I'll put this one in yellow. This is the one that I'm trying to figure out the code to make it highlight that block right there. So I'm somehow going to have to get to column number 27. AA is column number 27. I'm going to have to figure out that we're going to end in column, whatever column we end in here. 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, column 31. Oof. How do I figure out which column that's going to be in? I've got to look at this and figure out, oh, 11 a.m., that's 27. Starts in column 27. Any thoughts? Yeah, go ahead. Okay. So first thing you're saying is that, listen, we got hours and we've got minutes kind of mixed in here together. And so let's think about the hours separately. And each hour we have to move how many columns? Yeah, like a column here is like 15 minutes wide. So let's start off by just calculating kind of three. Let's make 3 variables. Let me dim a start underscore hour. Let's see, an hour is going to be, lowest hour could be maybe 0. I don't think we're scheduling stuff at midnight, but 0 through 24. So what would be a good data type for this? Byte would be great. Right, 0 through 255. There's only 12 or 24 hours, depending on how we're counting. And then how about for minutes? Dim start minute as probably also a byte. And then it's also, we're going to use those to figure out what our start column is. Start call. Probably I'm going to use integer for this. I could get by with byte. Am I going to get wider than 255 here? No. But I think it's a good habit to say, listen, if I've got a variable that's referring to a column, it should have the range that is legal for that column. And so there's like 16,000 columns, so it's longer than byte. Integer would do the trick. By the way, when I was your age, Excel only had 255 columns. Whew. Now you got like 16,000. It's only had like 32,000 rows. Now you've got 1.02 million. Man, you guys got it so good. All right. So let's see if we can figure out how are we going to get to hour. Let me do this. I'm going to print the row, and I'm also going to print here the start time. So the start time is in which column? Start time is in column I. That's the 9th letter of the alphabet. So column number 9 value. So I'm expecting to see that print 11 when I run. Oh no, I'm going to be on number 3 here. I'm expecting that to be like to print out an 11. 8 a.m. Oh, it's row 3, and I'm looking at my third set of data that I'm after. So let's go ahead and change that to row number 4 is the one I want to be after. Okay, so it's row number 4, 11 a.m. Okay, any thoughts on how we're going to get the hour off of this? It turns out there's a function built into VBA that lets me get the hour off of a time expression. In fact, not even just a time expression, but even like a string that it can figure out as being a time expression. So let me just come up here and type in hour and put in like 12, 1 o'clock. And that tells me 1. But what if it's 1 o'clock p.m.? Then it gives me 13. Like it's actually figuring out, it's like on 24-hour clock, it's pulling out the hour from that time. So I should be able to figure out my start hour using that just by saying start hour equals hour of the cell that's got our starting value in it. Start minute. Can you guess? I think it's called minute. Yeah, so that's reading the minute off of that time expression as well. Now I just got to figure out the column it's supposed to start in. Yep.
The hour and minute functions, or that whatever they're called that you have there.
They are called functions. They're built-in functions.
Do they have to receive a value that's in that exact format, like 1:50p or 12:30p?
So there's some flexibility here. It can figure out P versus PM, A versus AM. If there's like 0 in front of that, it should still like it. And then let's maybe change this to hour instead of minute, so we can kind of see the difference between PM and AM. All right, 13 versus AM. How much more flexibility do we have in here? We could put seconds on it as well. Hour, minute, and second. It'll still pull the hour off, and it'll take the second as well, I think. Yeah. Can also ask for the year. What's the year of that time? I heard it. Someone say it. Oh, so close. I think it's 1899. Because I think the first date is like December 30th, 1899, which is a crazy date to be the starting date. But that's it. Right. Yeah. So I didn't specify the day, month, or year, but I could. And then it'll kind of pull that out as well. But there's going to be kind of like lots of different variations that this could take. So I think it will even figure this one out. 2022, and then let's go to like October 26th, my birthday. Yeah, can figure that one out as well. So even though the year now is at the front instead of at the end, we recognize that as kind of a standard date format and figures it out. Yeah.
What if you had a ambiguous month and day? So like, say you had 2022, 10/2. And how would you be able to tell it that you were wanting month versus day?
That's a good question. The question is this February 10th, or is it October 2nd? It's October 2nd. And it's because this is a standard format. So year first, I don't know anybody puts year first and then the day and then the month. That's just not a standard way to do it. Oh yeah, that's not, yeah, the year is the same either way, but let's go to month. It's going to figure that out. So yeah, in fact, I think it could probably even get in here October. I think that's standard enough. It's going to know Yeah, can read that. And so it's got, you know, kind of sophisticated logic to figure out. This is kind of the standard ways that we write dates, and it'll pull it out. Yeah. I don't know what all the rules are, but if we can kind of identify it. What day of the week is October 2nd? What is today? Today is 9/19. So Sep 19. And what is today? Monday? I think it'll even do this. Like that's a standard date format as well. Apparently not so standard. 9/19/22. Never mind. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain who's trying to put the day of the week in there. Okay. So, yeah, any other questions? So it's kind of hold month, day, year, minute, hour, second that you can kind of pull out parts of a time. Now, so did we actually run that and have it print out? Oh yeah, we did. So it's printing out. No, it's not. Let's go ahead and run this and make sure it's printing that information out. So, oh, I wanted to print the start hour here. Start hour, start minute. Start min. Yeah, so we're getting the 11 for the hour and we're getting the 0 for the minute. So far, so good. All right, so we're going to try to figure out what the start column is. Whew. Well, we know that if we take an hour, for advancing 1 hour, we've got to move 4 columns over. So let's just kind of get started with that. So let's say our start column is equal to our start hour times 4. And let me go ahead and print off the start column here as well. So that's telling me the 44th column. Well, I think it probably would be the 44th column if we were starting midnight at column A, but we're not. We're starting 8 o'clock at column O. And so I just think it's it's just offset. We just have to kind of get this thing kind of brought back to the beginning. So if I think about 8 o'clock, let me go ahead and do one that's at 8 o'clock because that's line number 3. That's kind of our beginning spot. So let me change this to line 3. See what it prints for me. So it's like 32. So when we've calculated 32 there, it should be 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I think O is the 15th letter of the alphabet. So when I've got a 32, I need to get to 15. So that's like that start hour minus 17. I'm going to check that. Range R A range 01 dot column. Yeah, it was the 15th column. Okay, so I think based on the hour, that looks pretty good. So let me just check if I put in here row number 4, which starts at 11 o'clock. That should give me, oh, whatever column that is. Let me just ask for the column of the active cell. Yeah, 27. So that's calculate the hour. And we've got to think about the minute, but I think now, at least if we're just talking on the hour, we've figured out the start column okay. Whew. What do we have to do to get the minute, the start minute? Let's think about one that starts on the half hour. Do we have one that starts on the half hour? Yeah, line number 6 is going to start at 12:30. So if I look at line number 6, right now I should be calculating what 27 plus 4, 31 for the line number. Oh, wait a minute, line number 6, line number line number 5, not 6. Yeah, so we're calculating 31, which would be, it's 4 higher than 12. 12 or 11 o'clock was 27, so we're now at 12 o'clock. We're moved 4 columns over, so it's 31. But we're starting not at 12 o'clock, but at 12:30. So what do we have to do with that 30? Yep. Divide it by 15, right? Because if I've got 30 minutes, I want to move over 2 blocks. Okay. So what you're saying here is let's take that and let's add on to it my start minute divided by 15. And so that's now bringing me into 33. And is that right? So if we're starting at 12:30, it should start right here. What's the column of the active cell? 33, yeah. Okay, so I think we've successfully calculated the start column. All right. For our second in-class exercise of the semester, 2 in 1 day, what will we do? Give me an end hour, an end minute, and an ending column. How many minutes do you think you need for that? Should we do 5? So go ahead and modify your code so that you're calculating. We've got the code here for the start. Let's go ahead and figure out the code for the ending as well. I'll give you 5 minutes. If I can find my browser. And I'll be back before that timer's up. If you feel like you're on the path to getting this, just raise your hand. See, you feel like you're headed there. Most of us. Questions? All right, let's go ahead and take a look at how I might go about doing this. First, would try to type as little as possible. So I'm just going to come in here and change start to end a few times. And let's see, what do we have? Do we have a start and a duration, or do we have a start? We have a start time and an end time. That actually makes things kind of easy because it's just a matter of looking at a different cell. So our end hour, our end minute, our end column. So instead of looking at column 9, it's just the next one over, column 10. And then this will be our end hour and our end minute. And I think we're probably going to have to adjust somehow, because if we had a class that was just 15 minutes long, the start this column and the end column would be the same thing, right? So I think we're going to want to subtract 1 off of this whole thing, although I'm not positive. That's my guess. Okay, so let me try our 8 o'clock, which is row number 3. Let's just see what that calculates for us. Eight, 0. Oh, I have to actually say our ending. We'll just do this as a separate line. So we'll have this end hour and minute and end column. Okay, so it starts at 8 o'clock, ends at 9:15, starts in column 15, ends in column 20. Starts in column 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I did not expect it to be to be off by 1. Oh, I never subtracted the 1, did I? -1. There we go. So yeah, starts in 15, ends in 19, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So that looks just right. Ah. How many of you did something similar to what I did here? Okay, quite a few. And how many of you actually did that in 5 minutes? Got that taken care of? Just a few of us, all right. All right, so now we just need to see, how do we go about changing the interior color of something? So should we record ourselves doing it? That's something I know how to do really well through VBA, but let's just record ourselves and see what it does. See if it puts us in the right direction. I'm not entirely sure that it will. We've got something selected there. Let me go ahead and record. Oops, my developer tab. Record a macro. Call it macro 1. I don't know if you need to record this along with me, but let's just see how it records. What am I doing? I'm just going to change the color. So file, oops, home, and change the fill color I'm going to come and choose a standard color instead of one of the theme colors, because I think that's going to deal with something with the theme. And I'd rather just set it to a color. I'll make it purple. Ooh, nice. And stop recording. Oop. Let's see what that recorded. So that'll be in module 2. Yeah, okay. So it's done, it did like way more than I told it to do, because all I did was change the color. But it said, hey, by the way, we're going to put a pattern on that pattern color index. Back in the day, imagine a world where there's no color printers. I lived in that world. And back then, if you wanted to highlight a cell like differently in Excel, you would have a different pattern on the background. I have polka dots, or you'd have horizontal stripes or vertical stripes or diagonal stripes. And that's what this is talking about. So it's talking about the pattern. So it's saying, listen, there's the interior of the range, and it's got a pattern, it's got a pattern color, it's got a color, like the color of the cell itself, tint and shade. I don't even know what that is. Pattern, tint, and shade. Wow, fascinating. But this is the only one we're after. So I am after the, I needed the, I gotta have identify a range, then I'm going to change the interior dot color property. And that's what purple looks like. Wow, what a great way to say purple. All right. Okay, so let me refer to the range that I'm interested in. So let's see. I've got a starting, so the row I know because the row is passed in, and now I've calculated my start column and my end column. So I should be able to do it like this. So range dot address. Let me just go ahead and print the range's address. And then we'll change the color once we identify the right address. Now, the way that we've seen to work with range so far is like A1, or maybe A1 through C5. Put a full range in here. But there is another variation of this range object where I can give it 2 different cells. I can give it a starting cell and an ending cell, and it will identify the whole range in between those. Now, I could do that by like manipulating this string, but we don't really know the string functions yet. So let's look at this way. So I'm going to say cells for my starting cell, C-E-L-L-S. I'll identify a cell there, comma, and then another cell here. So I'm going to identify a particular cell as the ending cell, and then here a particular cell as a starting cell. Well, cells takes 2 arguments, both can be integers. So row is the first argument, and that'll be the same on both halves. And then we've already calculated our ending column and our starting column. So this is kind of a long statement as we're just beginning here. Let me just highlight one of these cell statements. So that is going to identify a particular cell. It's going to be the first cell I'm trying to highlight. And that now is the first argument to this range method that's going to take in 2 different cells, starting cell and ending cell. So this one that I'm on right now is giving me 15 to 19. So that's O through S. So that should put the range O3 to S3. So let's see what that prints when I run this. It says something is not supported. Debug.print range. ADDRESS, thank you. It was the very end. It would take me a long time to get there. So yeah, it's giving me O3 to S3. By the way, when you're working with the address property, you can, it takes 2 parameters. Like, do you want the columns, do you want the rows to be absolute, and you want the columns to be absolute? So you can come in here and say false, comma false. And we're saying, I don't want rows to be absolute. I don't want columns to be absolute. And that will give you a range that's a little more like you're used to seeing it. So O3 to S3, great. So instead of printing it, what do I want to do? I want to change the interior's color. And I'll make it purple. Okay, so this should be, we're working on row number 3. So that should change this one to purple. That's row number 3. If everything works right, that's what it should do. Oh, thank you. There we go. So if purple was the color we wanted for all of them, and I'm not sure that it isn't. Now, if I run make schedule, which just calls schedule 1 class with all the individual row numbers that we need, that should write out that whole schedule visually. Looks pretty good. It's not too bad. That code's not too bad. Just kind of show me, scale of 1 to 5, how comfortable we are with what we have done so far in class. 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Okay. And this is, this is a lot of what programming in VBA is like. It's like trying to figure out what's the algorithm that we can do it. How do we, kind of map from kind of one scale to another, going from start hours to columns or something like this. Pretty common. But why don't we go ahead and let's make any day that has or any class that is all week. Here's the problem, is that all we're showing right now is the time. We don't know anything about, are they overlapping on the same days? So let's make some different colors now for the different days that we have here. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, let's make that, we should make that dark red. That's like the devil's schedule, having to meet in class every week. So here's our colors. We're going to do something here to figure out, what color we should be using. So let me declare a variable for color. Let's declare it down here, dim color as a long integer. We really haven't talked about conditional branching yet. So that's coming up, but we kind of have to do that now to make this part work. So let's just use the if statement. Let's say if, and then let's look at a particular cell. It's column H. So it's the row that we're on, column H, cells, row number row, column number H, value. If that equals Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, then color equals, what color did I say I wanted it to be? The dark red, like the devil's color. The devil's color is actually number 666. Is that just a little bit creepy to anybody besides me? Okay. So if it's that, we're going to make it that color.
Thursday is an R.
Did I say H? Oh, thank you. R. Oh, yeah. And this one. So let's do Monday, Wednesday. We can make that one purple. What else do we have? Tuesday, Thursday. So that's probably TR. Now, it turns out there's a function that will kind of let us get into this whole kind of coloring system a little bit easier. So it's called RGB. You give it the amount of red, green, and blue that you want. And it's a scale of 0 to 255 in each one. So if you want pure red, it's RGB. It's in that order. So it's 255, 0, 0. That's all red, no green, no blue. And that gives you the number. If you want all blue, it's going to be 0, 0, 255. Then that's the number for blue. But you don't have to actually put that number in, because you could use this function to get there. So I'll give us like a dark red, a blue, and a purple. And there's some that are Friday only. let's do this. Let's start off by giving it like a color of green. So let's just start color off at green. And then if we have any of these other ones, it'll get one of those colors in particular. So we're saying no red, all green, 0 blue. And then if it happens to be this, we'll change it. If it happens to be this, we'll change it. If it has to be this, we'll change it. But then at least we'll have a color for everything, even if we haven't thought about what else there is. Is Friday the only other possibility? No, there's also a Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So those will get some of the same colors. It didn't work out so well. Color equals this. Equals color. So it's interior dot color is what it's supposed to be here. Seems like that should have worked. Did I just run the wrong one? Acme subrunner. Well, this is actually a good opportunity to kind of look at some of the tools we have for debugging, which you might need for the project if you're still working on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and put a breakpoint right here. We've got a whole day where we'll talk about debugging and error handling. But for right now, it may be that some of you have accidentally clicked over here and you got a red line and you went, oh my gosh, what have I done? And you clicked on it again and it went away and you went, whew. But if I put a breakpoint in that red line and I run this code, then right before it gets to that line, it's going to say, okay, we're going to stop the code right here. Run up to this point, everything's still loaded in memory. And now let me see what row is. So row is 3. So I should expect this to be a Tuesday, Thursday class, a TR. I've got a TR here. So now I can step one line at a time by choosing debug, step into, or just F8. And we can see where it goes. I'm expecting this to go onto that color equals RGB, and it is.
It's 225, not 2.
Oh, so this, right? That I don't think that. I mean, it should have still been a color. 255. Oh, and that one is right. That one is going to blue. You know, it makes me wonder if these aren't, they've got a space on them or something. Does it? Okay, I'm gonna try a different row now. Oh no, I've just been, sorry. My problem is I didn't run the right one. I think that's the whole problem after all. Right, so F5, I want to run the make schedule. I want to run the whole thing. There we go. So now the color is going to correspond to what day of the week it meets on. And so I've got some other feeling about, you know, when this schedule is happening. Taking something that's more 3-dimensional and looking at it on 2 dimensions. Anything else you want to do on this example? Yes.
Just a question. You can do a red, green, blue. Can you do a hex code?
Can you do it in hex? And the answer is yes, but not in the way you're thinking. So you're trying to think of like pound FFCCFF. And the answer is Excel has been around longer than we've kind of had standard hex codes for the web. And so let me just kind of take a peek at that. So VBA hex color for Excel. Working with colors and Excel VBA. Let's see if they give us the hex. Yeah. So here, by putting ampersand in front of it, I think ampersand H tells us it's hex. And then it's kind of like the hex code you're used to, but they're not in the same order. So it's not red, green, blue. I think it's blue, green, red. So let's just try real quick and then we'll call it good for today. So let's make another one for this one at the end here, which is Tuesday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So if it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, let's put here ampersand H. And then if it's blue, green, red, if we put FF0000, then that should be mostly blue.
Also, you can put the Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the wrong spot.
Thank you. Seems like it should have an error with that. Not right.
I think you still, the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but that should be column H.
Oh, you said I put it in the wrong spot. Yeah. I heard you say the wrong font, and I thought he just means it's not capitalized, but it's over here. Surely that's what he means.
I wanted to wait there.
There we go. So yeah, it is. So it's, you can get to hex codes. You start off with the ampersand H and then it's blue, green, red. So. All right, that's it for today. Good luck getting the stuff done by midnight tonight for the project, and I will see you on Wednesday. Class dismissed.